What can we learn from photo contests? Well, I think quite a bit, even if we weren't in the contest ourselves. I had the opportunity to judge a photo contest the other night and took away a few lessons that I'm going to share with you today. Hi, I'm Lynn Morton from the Shutterbug Life Podcast, and today I want to talk about photo contests. I had the opportunity to judge a contest a couple nights ago for a camera club, and I do this for them, well, the last 3 or 4 years, and I get invited to speak and judge contests all the time for camera clubs. And before I started this one that night, I gave some opening comments about the way I think about photo contests in terms of me, the person given feedback, and what I think the person's receiving it should take away from it. So I want to share some of the comments that I gave to the audience that night because I think they have a value beyond them. I think it's good for those of us who are thinking about getting into photo contests, those of us who might have been, and just those of us who are looking to get better and looking for tools to help us do that. So let's talk about photo contests. Now, so the first thing I offered was you are the artist. And when I say that, what I mean is you should be creating art for yourself. You should be creating art to develop your own voice and to express what you see as a photographer, as an artist, and to continue growing in your own voice. Now, the reason I think this is important because if you find yourself entering contests and using the contest as validation rather than feedback, I think that's where there is the danger. You know, the contest gives you valuable feedback on where you might be and what things you might need to improve, but it's not validation on the value of your art and the value of your work. You create that because you know who you are as an artist and what you are striving to create, not the judge of the contest. And so use it as feedback, but not validation. One of the things I think you need to be aware of is if you start creating images and creating art just to win contests, at some point you begin to dilute your voice because you begin creating for the judges and not for yourself. And so I want to keep stressing here that you, the artist, create for yourself, and then you get feedback from this person and sort of use it to continue to refine. So use it to refine, but not to define. Refine, not define, is the way you should be thinking about your experience with photo contests. Your growth comes from submitting, listening, um, thinking about what they said, and then going back and trying to incorporate the things that you think were valid and can help you improve. This is the value you'll get from submitting your work to a contest, not to define whether or not your work is worthy. And what I found is we tend to think about the feedback we get on contests differently depending on where we are in our journey. Now, those of you who are in my community know I think about the photography journey in 3 stages, 3 phases. The first is the emerging with the beginner, and you are just out there trying to learn and understand your camera and figure out, you know, who you are behind the camera. Then there's the enthusiast when you sort of figure out who you are and you're comfortable and you're producing work and you're looking to now level up to make yourself a better artist or photographer. And then the entrepreneurial where you are thinking about starting a business now or doing something significant with your art. So now when the emerging, a lot of people go to contests looking for approval. You know, am I any good? You know, am I worthy? You know, can I really do this? And then what at the enthusiast, and now you're starting to think, okay, what can I do to get another edge to move myself up? And then by the time you're entrepreneurial, you're thinking, you know, what can I do to sell more with my camera? So, you know, we think about it different ways, but at the end of the day, it is the tool and not, again, helps us to refine, but not to define who we are and where we are. And the thing to remember is in a contest, you are being judged on a single image from a single person on a single night within a narrow set of rules and guidelines. Okay, so let's not expand it any more beyond that. It's a single image on a single night, against whatever other images were submitted that night, and then against a set of single rules and guidelines. And you should think of it that narrowly and not expand it to anything more than that. The other thing I wanted to share from my time judging is technical excellence is the entry fee. And what do I mean by that? You got to have the basics down on your images. And here's the way I think about it. You don't win because you get the basics down, but if you don't have the basics down, you can't win. Okay? And I find that a lot of photographers are so busy focused on trying to be creative and create a splash that a lot of them just blow past the basics. And by the basics, I mean I have a clear subject. I know what I'm looking at. I have that clear subject is well exposed for what it's supposed to be. We're using a light to creatively, if we need to enhance it more. The composition is there to draw the eye to your subject and eliminate any distractions. And then there's a storytelling angle in there somewhere, or a little something that gives you the so what factor. That's POW. But at a minimum, I want to know the subject. I want to see it in focus. I want to see it well exposed, and I want to see great composition. These are the floor. This is the bare minimum. You need this. You're not going to win because of it, but if you don't have this, you can't win. And so don't ignore this as you go shooting for something that's, super creative and super fun. I've seen lots of great things, but then it's underexposed, or, it's slightly, the focus is slightly off, and, you gotta nail the foundations if you want to have any chance of winning in one of these contests. Here's the other thing to remember also. Judges are subjective, right? So this is, one person's opinion. It's not the end all be all. And you've got to take that into consideration. Early in my podcasting experience, back when I started back in 2014, 2015, I interviewed this photographer who did a surrealistic art. And which means she would do this kind of stuff where she would do a lot of compositing and create something that looks otherworldly, right? There was one picture I remember, she had a face there with a bunch of needles all stuck into the face that she superimposed each needle separately and created this really, interesting looking, image. And she said she went to this conference and submitted for a portfolio review, and the reviewer just trashed her stuff, and she said she left feeling so despondent. And then she went to another conference, and they loved it. And she said, upon reflection, what she realized is the first conference, the reviewer was someone who was a photojournalist, and they were used to more realistic, no, not artsy kind of things, and so they didn't like what she did. And then she went to another one who was more of a fine art photographer, and he could see and understand what she was doing and loved what she did. And it wasn't that her art was any better or worse for each, just one of them, because of who he was and his bias and his background, couldn't appreciate it. So when you are submitting, you have to take into consideration the bias of the reviewer, the bias of the judge. If you know what they do and where their leanings are, that might also shed some light as to how you may have done well or not so well on a contest. You're submitting to a person and not a machine, and so you've got to pay attention to that as well. And then wrapping up with them, I said, not winning doesn't mean not good, right? The fact that you did not win doesn't mean that your photograph can't be a portfolio worthy piece of art. And you've got to remember, as I said before, you're being judged on a single night by a single person against a single set of people against a single set of rules. And it is that narrow. So if looking through that lens, you don't make, first or second or third, it doesn't mean that what you have isn't good. So here's how you should think about it. And this also leans back into the people are subjective thought. If you start submitting your image, submit it to a number of different contests and look for the common themes that arise. So if you keep getting the same feedback from two, three, four different judges who are different and don't know each other, then you know that's something you should pay attention to. Then you know that perhaps there's something here worth focusing in on and working on. But if you just get it one time from one person, not from anyone else, maybe it was the preference of the reviewer. And, that's worth considering too. So, look at it over time, over reviewing for over a number of different people and see where the common themes are and use that as your guidepost for what you will work on to improve and get better. But just know that a single contest, the feedback that you did not win doesn't mean that you don't have a good picture. And now, finally, while we're thinking about this, I wanted to touch on certifications because I just came back from a photography conference where they really pushed hard to get photographers to get certified. And of course they do, because that's one of the products that they offer for their association. And that's how they prove their value to you. How do you match up against everyone else, get certified, and now you have something to go, ooh, and, and to now, I guess, judge yourself relative to everyone else. So here's how I think about this. I my In my previous life, I used to work as a public relations professional. And when I was a PR professional, I went and got the industry certification. And you get to put the APR after your name when you are a certified public relations person. Studied, took the test, passed the test. All right, good, I got it. And here's what I learned from that experience. Not one customer or client ever asked for that or cared that I had it. You know who cared most? My peers, the other people in the field. They saw that I got it and they went, oh, good job, And so it's good internally, but it didn't help me get any more money. It didn't help me get any clients. None of my bosses said, oh, you have an APR. Let's give you a 10% raise. Nope, never happened. And I think the same thing happens on the photography side. You will not get or lose any clients because you have a certification. You get clients because they like your portfolio, they like your personality, and they think that you can deliver for them and help them solve the problem that they need to solve. That's it. But the certification, just like the contests, are good for you to see where you stack up and what you might need to work on. And so for something like that, to have someone who is an experienced professional look at your work and say, if you want to put yourself out there as an expert in this field, here are some things you might think about tightening up and working on. So it's great for that kind of experience. But again, don't get it to define yourself as a professional photographer. Look at me, I have this, I have arrived, because nobody cares other than the people who won't be buying your photographs or won't be part of your audience unless, you shoot for photographers. So, so that's the thing about certification. So this is what I shared with the audience. And I think, these are some good lessons for us to think about as we think about contests and our overall growth as photographers. Create art for yourself. You are the artist. Make sure that you are creating first for yourself and use your contests to help you refine, but not define who you are. Master the fundamentals. You have to get those right because nothing else matters beyond that. After the fundamentals, then you can go for the wow factor, because the wow factor will win it for you and the fundamentals will lose it for you. Okay? You work on the details, understand the subjectivity of the people who are judging you, and then never let a ribbon or lack of one define who you are as a photographer. Remember, you are the artist. All right? So there's some good advice for you going out there and enter your contest, win some contests, but most of all, learn and improve your art. All right, that's it for this one. Hey, if you know a photographer who might benefit from this, please go ahead and forward this to them. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and share this with anyone else who could use this information. It helps us to continue to spread the word and grow. And then if you want my slides from this, which is with my notes, then you can go to the blog at shutterbuglife.com/blog, find this episode, and you'll be able to download them for free there. All right. Hey, thank you so much for sticking with me so far. I'm enjoying this time with you, and I'm looking forward to next week talking more photography. In the meantime, get out there and shoot, shoot, shoot. And remember, you are the artist. Go create your best work. Take care.